Light in the Night. "It's 7 o'clock," my mother said. "It's now time to read in bed." I hurried fast without delay. I know the Lord would have me to obey. My mother walked up to my side. She kissed my cheek while teary-eyed. I asked, "Why are your eyes full of tears? Is there something, mother, that you fear?" Looking down with a gentle gaze, she said, "I just want you to know God's ways. He can save you, my dear son. Yes, even your heart can be won." She then handed me a little brown book, which from her tear-stained hand I took. "Read and pray, my dearest boy. I'll pray too that you find true joy." The sun's beams fading now quite fast, I hurried to open the book at last. The Holy Bible was written on the inside. Oh, how I desire that this word would in me abide. I first turned to Genesis and read about the fall. Eve, being deceived, lusted after the tree tall. Both Adam and Eve fell into sin and shame, and because I was born of them, I am born the same. Turning next to Romans, I read in chapter 3 something that was very alarming to me. This truth pricked my heart to the deepest core, and I felt very sinful, oh, even more than before. All through the world, though it be wide, I read that there are none righteous from side to side. The flesh of man, his nature is corrupt. This reality led me to look Isaiah 64 verse 6 up. I've thought that I've done many good things. I've obeyed, used manners, and I often sing. But here I see that even these works mean nothing, and without Christ only filthy rags I bring. Can this be that on Judgment Day I will have nothing good about my works to say? I quickly turned to Matthew 25 verses 31 through 46. I saw that the sheep and the goats cannot mix. Divided before the throne of judgment soon, the sheep are welcomed, but the goats will face doom. Ah, who are these goats according to the word? I turned back to chapter 7 in this piercing sword. There, starting in verse 21, I read that some of the goats thought they were alive but were dead. They called Jesus Lord and spoke of their acts, but before the countenance of Christ they melted as wax. None of these could stand before him on that day, because they performed not Christ's will. Depart, he will say. What can I say now about all my deeds? If I'm not cleansed in the blood, then I'll have nothing to plead. Next, I turned to John chapter 14, and there it was confirmed what my eyes had just seen. Christ said that if you love him, whether gray-haired or a youth, then you will do his will and obey him of a truth. Oh, even the good things that I have tried to do have all been in vain if my heart isn't new. Works cannot save, I see this now in heart. But if there is true faith, then Christ's works will follow from the start. Flipping the pages to James chapter 2, I with urgency read how this in fact was true. There in verses 14 through 26 I read that faith without works is always dead. My soul feeling low and abased before God's word, I bowed my head down, and then Galatians 5 I heard. With tears streaming fast, I looked as I took a deep breath. I read that anger, strife, uncleanness, and many other sins are spiritual death. I looked out my window at the passers-by. Ah, how many are deceived, just as it was with I. Is it true that only a few will find true mercy and grace? I searched the scriptures as my heart did race. There in Matthew 22, verse 14, I saw that many are called, but only few in wedding garments will be seen. Some will think that they will enter heaven and not fire, but God shall see their hearts, that all along they were liars. Next I read Matthew 24, verses 37 through 39, that just as in the days of Noah, men will love filth as swine. Instead of being moved with fear to be found worthy, I read that most will continue eating, drinking, and at ease unworthy. I remembered how Daddy told me that only 8 souls were saved when Noah built an ark and preached to all in his day. I remembered that the old world was deceived, and after God poured out wrath, his righteous soul was relieved. Though he promised that consumption by rain would not again come, I've heard that this time a consumption by fire would burn for hearts numb. The darkest days are these last that I now in abide. This church age has gone backwards and from God has turned aside. I've seen my parents weep at the treachery in this hour, and at how in pride the church abides, exalting their glory as a flower. I turned to Isaiah 40, verses 6 through 8, and read something fearful concerning this pride that the Lord indeed had said. Though men as grass and flowers seem to flourish for a day, because of the church's sins, their blossoms shall soon in fire fade. Because the hearts of God's people have turned lukewarm to his taste, God through judgment will arise to bring down man's beauty with all haste. Exalted alone through judgment, the Lord through fire shall arise. Oh, make me that voice, Lord, that Isaiah 40 cries. May I be one of those few who stand prepared and ready to interpret with wisdom the judgments falling steady. Make me to number now my days, that I might turn with fear. Open my spiritual ears, that I might more of your voice hear. Teach me to feel the sin of pride, that my glory now might fade. Cleanse my heart from every stain, and receive this soul for whom you've paid. If I refuse your outstretched hand that offers now mercy, then how will I stand in the judgment soon, when you send worldwide calamity? I want to stand at the end with white garments clothing me. Give me your righteousness, I pray, and from my sins come set me free. I next turned the pages to Revelation chapter 12 and beheld, those that loved not their lives unto death were upheld. By the blood of Christ that I need now, the beloved of God shall in the evil day keep their vows. Along with these truths that I can now see, it also says that they overcame by knowing prophecy. Just as God's word can save men at the first, by it shall men progressively flee from sin's curse. Full of oil to give life in the midnight hour, God's word will be the hope in this dark hour. Oh, is there any hope for such a worm as I? I feel that my iniquities have reached to the sky. Bowing not just knees, but my heart also, I must cry out to Jesus, for where else can I go? Salvation cannot come but by him alone. It is only his blood that for sinners can atone. Now I know that if I am to stand before Christ on that day, I must savingly know what this book does say. In Revelation chapter 1, verse 3, it says, "Blessed are those that read, keep, and see. Cleanse my heart, Lord, now in all ways. Save and make me your friend in these last days. If I find mercy, a lover of souls I'll be. By your mercies I will not be selfish with what you bestow unto me. Just then my mother walked through the door. She knelt down and whispered Psalm 105, verse 4. I wiped my tears and opened the book. After reading this verse, to my mother I looked. I shall seek this King's face forevermore. Please pray for my heart to be cleansed, that him alone I'd adore. I cannot bear one more night in these sins. I must be found as one of the bridegroom's friends. She wiped her tears that dropped one by one and said, I'll pray for you always, my dear son. Jesus is worthy for you to forever seek. May he cleanse your heart and make it truly meek. Through that dark night, prayers lifted high, tears flooded the ground with heavy sighs. But before the night ceased, a light from heaven entered in. Then mercy and truth rescued this boy from his sins. Dear reader, do you now also see how you were born a slave to sin instead of free? You as well must seek this King of glory until you too find life, just as the boy in this story. The evil day is at hand, judgment is not stalled, and oil is needed to make the midnight call. Will you stand in faith with the wise as they give their lives for Christ, who for them first died? Those who are worthy in these last days will give their hearts to know what God's word does say. They will not love their lives selfishly unto death, but they will, in love, be spent for Christ with their every breath. But those many that will be found in this day unaware will be as the spoil of a thief, because of unbelief, pride, and cares. May it not be for you, as you've been given today, to seek the Lord, call upon him, and with urgency pray.